Just picked up myself a brand new 2014 Honda CRF250L, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about what I like and don't like about it, and then as I kind of make it my own, add a few mods and stuff to get a little better performance out of it. Might do a couple updates, let everybody know what I think of that stuff as well. Stock, the bike, on the good side, is very inexpensive. It's by far the least expensive of the three, which would be the Kawasaki KLX250S and the Yamaha WR250R. The 2013 was a pretty big difference. It was about $600. For 14, Honda's raised the base price, which is kind of a bummer, to right around $5,000. So the Kawasaki and Honda are pretty close now in price, but on the plus side, the Honda does have fuel injection where the Kawasaki is still carbureted. And if you look at the two, the Kawasaki looks like it's pretty much straight out of 1994, and the Honda, although pretty old-fashioned in terms of construction in some ways with the steel frame and what have you, is thoroughly modern in other ways. Also on the good side, I'd say, is certainly styling. I think the CRF is a really nice-looking bike for a little dual sport. It really does look like the motocross bike from 20 yards away. You can almost mistake it for a real dirt bike. The motor's out of Honda's street bike, 250. It's no powerhouse. Stock, it's dynoed for about 18 horsepower, which is less than like a 1974 Honda CRF125 made, but torque is decent. Again, it's no rocket. Around town, it feels okay. On the highway, it really is a struggle to maintain 65. You almost can't even use top gear because between the wind resistance and my large butt on the back, it really is struggling to pull that gear. Few mods I think most people do is put an exhaust on it. That opens it up. Obviously, the stock exhaust weighs about 500 pounds, and it's really choked off. On the bright side, it is quiet. I love that part of it. You don't have to worry about annoying the neighbors, but it's very choked off. Also, a programmer to tune the fuel injection to let more fuel in is good, and most people also open up the airbox. Another popular mod is to lower the gearing with a 13-tooth front. Sometimes people go with a 41 or 42 or even 43 in the back. I'm going to start with just the 13 front, see how I like that. I'm sure off-road the larger rear is a big boon, but and really I don't plan on taking it on the highway anyway, so I'm going to start with the 13 front and then go from there, see how it is. Stock, like I said, the gearing's pretty tall. I did a little bit of off-roading on it last week just to kind of try it out and get a feel for what it was like, and compared to a real dirt bike, obviously it's pretty poor. The tires are not worth a darn. First gear is pretty much the only gear you can use. I kept trying to pull second and feathering the heck out of the clutch, and it just does nothing. The bike is, bog, and you pretty much just got to leave it in first and scream the bejabbers out of it. Stock, it's truly is anemic by dirt bike standards. I mean, it feels about as powerful as maybe a CRF250L or something, because of all the additional weight and stuff. It's definitely it's no rocket ship. I have an exhaust and the programmer on the way. I'll do a little update after I try that out, see what it's like. Hopefully it'll make it at least halfway decent without making it too loud. That's the other concern, of course. I want to be able to ride it to work and stuff, which is in town, so I don't want to make it too loud. Also want to ditch this ridiculous protuberance hanging off the rear fender, which looks absolutely absurd. I thought about getting the Yamaha. The Yamaha is by far the best dirt bike of the three, but there's a pretty significant difference in cost. I mean, it's almost $2,000 more, and I had no illusions about having it really be a dirt bike, so I just wanted something I could, tool to work, and if I get the itch to hit a trail or something with the kids or something, be okay. It's not a real dirt bike. I wasn't expecting it to be, so that part's okay. Suspension, pretty much terribles too. There's the rear shock is not completely non-adjustable. There's no compression, no rebound dampening, nothing like you would expect in anything built for dirt in the last 30 years. Forks, likewise, no adjustability. The Yamaha is much better in this regard. Stock, both ends are very soft, and of course all that added weight is doesn't help matters. Race Tech makes a nice kit. You can get the gold valves for it, and they actually make an accessory shock as well. If you really did want to off-road the thing, The shock's about $800. It's got a bigger body and more volume and stuff. Still has no remote reservoir or anything, so you wouldn't want to pound any whoops on it. But again, a bike that weighs 300 pounds, I really don't think I'm going to be trying to do any serious off-roading on it, so I don't know that would be money well spent. It's never going to be, a CR or even an XR, 400 for that matter. It's just not that kind of bike. It's just for fun, for puttering around trails and stuff like that, around town. I think it'd be good for that. So I'm hoping I'm not too frustrated with it. I think as long as I keep the expectations in check, it won't be too bad. So anyway, once I get the other stuff on there, I'll do a little update here, and we can hear the motor and stuff once the exhaust is on it. As you can hear stock, it's very quiet. I mean, there's really no appreciable noise at all from the motor. Which is really awesome around town. You can ride it at night and stuff, play around with the kids in the backyard, and nobody gets pissed. I ordered the FMFQ system, which is the quietest of the ones available. Although I preferred the looks of the Yoshimura one. It, number one, gets rid of this heat shield, which I have two little girls who might want to ride on the back, so I was worried, concerned about that. And it's also a little bit louder, which again, living in town here and wanting to ride it around town, I don't want to make it sound too obnoxious, get the neighbors pissed off. So I'm hoping the Q will be a nice compromise there between the two. So, hello everyone. Thought I'd do a little update here on the CRF250L project. I have, as I said last time, ordered a power-up kit for it. Unfortunately, the Q4 muffler was on back order, so they sent me everything but that. And I went ahead and put everything on that I thought I could make sense to do. The header I got, but that doesn't make much sense with the stock muffler on there. I don't think it's really going to make any difference. I don't think the header is where the choke point is on this stock engine, so I went ahead and figured I'd wait for the muffler for that. I went ahead and did put the programmer on there. Again, that's set up for the muffler, so I'm sure it's not going to run as well as it will with the muffler. And I went and did the airbox mod, which is removes the snorkel and also opens it up with a bunch of holes drilled in the side cover. The one thing I did notice is a huge increase in intake noise with that. I mean, it's pretty surprising how you don't realize how quiet the bike is until you do the airbox mod, and then you hear all this intake moan when you give it the gas. It's pretty remarkable, the difference. I mean, the stock bike is so quiet, even just doing that is a pretty noticeable difference. And I imagine it's actually part of the reason the bike is louder. I mean, a lot of that goes to the muffler, I'm sure, but a lot of that noise you hear is coming from the intake. Pretty much the only motocross bike you notice that on is like a YZ 450, because the airbox is up where the tank would be, so you really can't hear it. Most bikes, you really just don't notice the intake moan because the exhaust is so loud. But with the stock muffler on this and the airbox mod done, you really do hear that intake sucking air when you give it the gas. I went ahead and did also put the 13.2 sprocket on there, which definitely is a big improvement in terms of response down low. I haven't had a chance to really take it on the highway with that. With the stock gearing, like I said, 60 is a struggle. You almost have to pin the thing, and it doesn't seem very happy. So 6 gears almost not even, you can't even hardly pull it. So from what I've read online, the 13th is pretty good online. But again, I mean on the highway, but I've really just ridden it around town with that. I did get a little more off-road riding done, and drew some more conclusions about that. Like I said last time, the stock suspension is just ridiculously soft. It's pretty much sketchy on anything other than smooth ground. Really, the problem though is the stock tires. I mean, when I first saw the tires, they looked a lot more aggressive than the ones like on my my DRZ 400 I had, and my old XL back in the day and stuff. And they look like they'd actually work decently, but they're pretty much terrible. I mean, it makes even on dry ground, it makes it feel like you're riding on greasy mud. There's just no feel to the front end, and of course the thing is pretty heavy and front heavy to begin with, so it feels to me like the whole front end's getting ready to go away at any time. There's just no feeling of what the bike's doing, front or rear, whether you're on the brakes or you're giving it the gas. It's pretty sketchy. So I'm gonna have to get some real knobbies for it. I'm hoping that'll help the situation a little bit. I think that's really going to make a big difference in the handling, because right now it's if you get up to any speed at all, it's pretty scary because the bike is very unsettled anyways with the soft suspension, and then when you're not sure what the front's doing or the back's doing, it makes it pretty sketchy. I'm also probably going to get a different battery. They sell some pretty cool batteries for these, just so you can get on a KTM motocross bike that are save several pounds, for like $100. The thing does weigh 320 pounds, but with some prudent removal of some things and some swapping some stuff out, you can save easily about 15-20 pounds pretty fast between the exhaust and the battery, and getting rid of some of the froof on the tail section and blinkers and guards and what have you that you don't really need. The only other thing I will notice is the brakes are pretty god awful. Maybe it's because the stock tires are so bad that they don't want to give you a lot of brake, because you would just kill yourself if you had KTM brakes on this thing. But they're really wooden and have no feel at all. I mean, Honda brakes used to be the standard of the world for a long time in the 80s and 90s, and now KTM just crushes them. So even a stock CRF now doesn't have fantastic brakes, but these things are just terrible. They're wooden. They have no feel. The lever's not really soft. It's not like the old days with the Kawasaki where they were mushy feeling. They don't really feel mushy. They just don't feel like they have any bite to them. I don't know whether it's the pad compound or what, but whatever it is, it's not really good. On the street, I wouldn't say you have as much as you'd want, and in the dirt for sure you don't have as much as you'd want. So depending on how long I keep it, how serious this goes, I might consider doing something with the brakes, either trying a different pad compound to begin with, and maybe going to a braided steel line or some things. I mean, I don't want to get stupid. Again, it's not really a real dirt bike, so I can't have unrealistic expectations about it. But I wanted to have decent brakes. If you need to have a panic stop, you want to know the brakes are there. And off-road, I'd like to have a little more bite, especially if I put some knobbies on there, because it's the thing is so heavy, it's sketchy to stop to begin with. And when the brakes just feel, I get back on a motocross bike and it's like, oh my God, the difference is really stark. Maybe if you're coming off another bike like this, it's not a big difference. But if you're used to really good brakes, you get on this and they're like, whoa, it feels, they feel like drums almost compared to like a modern motocross brake. They're pretty bad. But again, that's a matter of what your expectation is. If this is your first bike, or, it is probably considered something of a beginner bike, and that may be something of it. If you put some really strong brakes on it, that might intimidate some people. But, I was certainly expecting a little bit more. So anyway, I'll do another update when I get the exhaust. Hopefully it'll be here this week. Throw that on there, do a little ride on it, and see if that makes much of a difference. Hopefully. I mean, like I said, I don't think it'll be a rocket ship, but hopefully it'll have a little more giddy up and go. So one more thing, I wanted to actually start it so you could hear it with the airbox mod. Again, it still has the stock silencer and the stock header pipe on it, but it definitely makes a difference in terms of the sound the motor makes. Off the gas, it doesn't sound much different, but when you actually get on the power, much deeper, throatier sound coming from underneath the seat. Again, I think, not the exhaust not, but you can really hear a difference. You can really hear a difference coming from the airbox itself. So I think once I get the exhaust on there, between the two, it'll definitely have a lot more sound coming out of it. Hopefully it'll have a lot more power. Otherwise, it's probably not a worthwhile trade-off on a bike that's not going to be very fast anyway. So guess we'll find out. I'll let you know. Peeps, time for update 3 on the 2014 CRF250L project. I finally got the last component of my power-up kit in. It came off back order, and I received my new FMF Q4 exhaust. Threw it on there yesterday, and I'm here to tell you it makes a huge difference. I'm really, I gotta be honest, pleasantly surprised, shocked almost at the difference between stock and the way the bike runs now with the programmer in place, the airbox mod done, and the FMF Q4 installed. I also put on a power bomb. Although I think the Mega Bomb gives it a little more low end, which is something this bike could use. I wanted to be able to retain the heat shield for riding it on the street. If I got boots and motocross gear, I'm not a concern, but if you're going to go down and get something at 7-Eleven in your shorts or something stupid, you don't want to roast your legs. So anyways, I went with the power bomb instead. And even that is significant when you go to slipped the new Q4 on it. There's an insert that it comes with that shows you how much more sleeve down the stock header is. The diameter on the power bomb is significantly larger. Anyway, as to performance, like I said, it's a huge improvement. The bike, on paper, they say it gets 6 more horsepower. It goes from 18 to 22, according to like some of the dyno runs I've seen with the power-up kit installed, and you can really feel the difference. I mean, it's still not a CRF250R by any means, but it goes from just laughably powerless to actually pretty entertaining. You can actually get it to pull a little wheelie now, which stock I tried yanking at the bars and clutching the hell out of it and doing everything possible. It won't even pull the front end off the ground. With the power-up kit and the lower gearing and the airbox mod, everything in place, it actually feels pretty peppy now. Again, it's not a motocross bike, but you know, it's decent. Certainly doesn't feel totally underpowered. Handles 60 miles an hour, 65 much easier. It no longer feels like it's, you know, really being drugged down at speed. It pulls it fine around town. It feels snappy. Before, in the stock condition, it literally feels like when you'd give it the gas, there was like a half a second beat between what your throttle hand was doing and what the bike was doing. It really was a kind of a disconcerting thing, almost like it had throttle by wire and the two were having like some kind of a disconnect there in the middle. Now it feels much more snappy, responsive. It also sounds a lot better. It has a little bit of some what you expect in a dirt bike to sound like. It's not obnoxious, but big difference. And surprisingly, you know, you don't even hear the airbox mode now. You know, the exhaust is louder. So that what I heard last week with the just the airbox holes in it, you don't even notice that now because the exhaust is a good bit throatier. Like I said, power-wise, it's much snappier off the line. The low end is hugely better. It's still not, you know, I don't think the top end makes a whole lot of difference. It probably does pull harder everywhere. What I really noticed is a response where stock, it was really boggy, and now it has a lot more snap to it. Go ahead and fire it up here, and I'll let you hear what it sounds like. Like I said, it's a lot better than it was. You can hear it's got a much throatier sound to it. Actually, sounds pretty much like a normal dirt bike now. I mean, it's significantly louder, obviously. It's not obnoxious. It's certainly quieter than a Harley Davidson or something like that. When you're riding it, it sounds much better. You know, if you grew up riding dirt bikes, you don't want it to sound like a leaf blower when you give it the gas, and that definitely accomplishes this. So overall, I would say huge improvement. If you have a CRF-L, you know, you can't not have this done. It's the difference is so remarkable. It almost feels literally like the bike has twice the power, and on paper it has 30%, so that's pretty significant. It really transforms the bike from not much fun at all to a whole lot of fun. So that I'm pleased with. Next thing is probably the tires, and then we'll see what we do with from there. So anyway, I'll talk to you soon.